Does size matter in badminton? Wait, what the hell are you guys looking at? This is not what I meant. So yeah, I didn't mean that size, but when I say does size matter, what do I actually mean? Do I mean size, like height? But that kind of has been debunked because Akane Yamaguchi. And if I don't mean height, then what do I mean by size? Well, they say that every great badminton player can play with literally any equipment, aka a $5 racket. But what if we're not talking about the price of the equipment, but the actual size of the equipment? Well, I'm a pretty good badminton player. I'm not a pro or anything like that, but I can handle myself on court. So I wanted to take on the size challenge in badminton, and I found this at my local badminton store. Not saying the name of the store because they're not sponsoring me, but if you want to sponsor the channel, make sure to hit me up. So what did I get at my local badminton store for sale? This. So this is a children's racket, and I've actually always been very confused about just the purpose of children's rackets, because when you see kids in training at badminton gyms, they're not using this. They are using a full regular size adult racket. And if you're gonna start your badminton career with just a regular racket, then why do we have these? I don't understand. But the actual purpose of these children's rackets are specifically for children who are 7 and under, who haven't necessarily developed their wrists, their arms, or anything in order to use a full-size racket. Since we debunked that, my next question was, well, what's the real measurement difference between a kid's racket and a full-size racket? Which is really gonna help answer the question, does size matter? So, kid's racket here, normal racket here. Let's do a little bit of measuring. Got my tape measure specifically for this project, not using it for anything else. Let's check this out. Let's see what we're working with here. Alright, so it looks like we're dealing with 5.5 inches, the standard, but you can do a lot with 5.5 inches, just saying. If we're talking about losing 5.5 inches though, that's a pretty big deficit that we're working with here. So I probably should be a little more worried than I am using this, but it feels pretty light. I think the 5.5 inches though, we're gonna need to make up some losses and figure out how to deal with that. I think the thing that's even more important than length is girth. No, I'm joking. We're not talking about that. The real thing I think that is going to be the hardest thing to get used to is the timing. Especially when you have experience playing a racket sport in general, you get used to the length of the racket that you normally use, right? And I think that's why for children's rackets, they wean you off of it very quickly. You have to switch because you're dealing with a lot of the practice and the timing and things like that. And you need to get used to that using a regular racket, not a child's racket. But I am interested to see if this is gonna be a good training racket, because if I'm able to get the timing really quickly, like it's still a racket, I can still probably use it for better or for worse, but it could also be a great training exercise because I have to do a lot more reaching, I have to use my legs more, and I have to be more mobile in order to get those shots that are a little farther away, a little tougher. So, can I win a game after losing 5.5 inches? Like, does size matter? Does length matter? We are going to see tonight.
A few moments later.
So, as I'm driving over, there are a couple things that come to mind. But the first thing that I didn't really think about until now is like, is it gonna be weird playing with a racket that's significantly and noticeably shorter than everyone else's racket? Gotta get over the awkwardness of just vlogging and doing stuff in public, because that's always been like my kryptonite.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine.
So I quickly realized that this was gonna be tougher than I thought. Warm-up was absolutely terrible, but it gave me the chance to get used to the racket length. Once you're used to a racket sport, I think you can adjust pretty easily as long as you make the necessary adjustments. My drives and underhands were pretty normal, but my god, the overhead shots were terrible. It was so embarrassing. The timing on those shots are way more important, and I felt like I couldn't generate as much power because the racket was shorter. So I immediately started praying as we went to the first game. Let's see how it went.
ask you how you are, you just have to.
It was at this moment that he knew. He f***ed up.
Okay, let's go.
Yes, 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 yes. Yes.
Super Idol 的笑容都没你的甜吧。Help me！
So yeah, even though we were playing with a handicap, we got 2 wins under our belt. I feel like that's not too bad for losing over 5 inches. If you're a badminton player who wants some kind of handicap, then this is definitely a good training exercise or just a good challenge for you to try on your own. Some things I noticed when watching the footage back is that I was definitely playing a lot more front court than back court, and that makes a lot of sense because when you're playing front court, you kind of don't really use an extended grip in the first place. So it's a lot easier when you don't have to reach as much compared to when you're playing backcourt. You're doing the clears, you're doing smashes, even drops. You want to hit it at the highest point possible, but when you lose those 5 inches, it's a lot harder to not only generate power, but just generate that reach in order to hit from the highest point possible. Obviously, doubles, you have another partner to rely on, which in the case of me and the partners that I played with, I was playing front a lot more and just rotating towards the front kind of instinctually because I knew I had that handicap. But what if I was playing singles with the children's racket? Well, we're gonna have to find out how that goes in the next video. So make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't. Like honestly, this video took a lot of editing, so I would really appreciate all the support that you can give me. Also check me out on TikTok, and I'll see you next time. Peace.